tight. Cable Channel 9's down here at the Winslow Museum, and today we have the 13th Continental Regiment, Rehoboth, doing their open show for us.
Okay.
Hey Brian, how you doing? I'm from Dayton Channel 9, and we're here for the open house today. And I know you're the drummer of the regiment. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right, drummers for the regiment back then, what we would do is an officer would give us commands, and for every command there was a drum rule for that, a drum call, and that would be passed down the line. They used drums and fifes because the fife had a high-pitched sound that could pierce the sounds of the battle. The drums had a deeper sound that also pierced the sound through the battle. So you can hear the different commands that were happening at the time. And there's a drum command for everything. I have a command for water call, prime and load, make ready, take aim and fire. I have a assembly rule, officer's call, mess call. You name it, there's a camp duty I had to give.
So it's sort of like your communication among the men.
I am. I'm the communication among the men. Most of the people who would have done it back then would not have been my age. Most likely it would have been boys. They would have been about 14 years old.
Okay.
Most likely I have a parent that was in the Army, who went along with them, and you need to play a fife or a drum. Someone my age would teach you how to play. That's what my job would be, basically. Right now, I would be more likely, if it's back in that time, I would be teaching the kids who's going to be drumming and fifing, how to play, learning all the different commands, and so on.
So how long would they be, like, like if you have a drummer out there with the unit back then, how many hours a day would they be out there, you think?
Probably a good 6 hours, 8 hours a day.
And it must be tough too if you got a sunny day or a summer day and the heat's on you, or opposite, you got the winter on you with snow and everything else.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we'll be looking forward to your some of your drum rolls that you'll be demonstrating today.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Come see if this is on.
So hi, this is Dayton Channel 9 again, and I have Brian Jean, and he's going to introduce the drum rolls to us. Thank you.
Call to arms.
Call to arms. I would keep doing that until all the troops would line up. I would have an officer on my side, and he'd be giving me the calls. One of the other calls is very popular, we used to do is the commands for engaging battle, priming and loading. So the first call would be make ready. Then they do prime and load. Take aim and fire. So after you're done, then they'll start all over again.
I can't even tell. I need my sunglasses.
Okay.
One of the things they would do is a lot of times, as well as all the different type of camp duties we had to do and everything else and marches, we would be their entertainment. Because they didn't have any other entertainment at that time. So all I do now is just play one of the songs that would most likely they would have played back then.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Dave from Dayton Channel 9, and we're here with Michelle. And Michelle, I know you got a very important job there, but we're trying to figure out what is the title of that job back then that they do?
Laundress wench. Actually, I was the camp laundress.
Okay.
In order to follow the camp, I would have had to be married to one of the men in this service. So they weren't allowed to carry anything for me. So what you see here is everything that I carried. You don't see a tent anywhere. I wouldn't have had one. Too heavy. This thing as it is, when I fill it up with all this stuff, is about 65 pounds.
65 pounds?
65 pounds.
Oh my word, that's a lot.
You can tell by my weren't out a few spots. So I've just taken what I have. I've just taken what I've had.
Yeah.
You know, I took the bottom of my skirt, which had ripped off, and I fixed up a hole that was on the side. And that's what they would have done. Where I got my water from was we were supposed to walk and get our own water, but the gentlemen were supposed to pay us 15 to 18 shillings for like their, you know, breeches or socks or whatever, but they weren't getting paid, so we weren't getting paid. And so in order to lighten our load a little bit, we would kind of wait until they were on maneuvers and practicing their drills, and we would go and take their drinking water because they had horses and stuff. So we would kind of just sneak there and take it that way. And the other interesting thing which everybody is amazed with is the 18th century Clorox, which is actually my urine. And I actually do use this. As a matter of fact, I'm using it right now. It was to take out stains, and it's quite pungent. So I did have a stain over here, and it's almost out.
Yeah.
You can kind of see it. And all they would have done was just wash it with some soap, get it nice and soapy, and then you take. Now, if I were living in this house, I would have a bat, and it was a big flat piece of wood with some curves in it.
Okay.
So when I smack the clothes, the water shoots out and dirt goes with it. But because I'm following the camp, I'm trying to minimize anything I have to carry.
Yeah,
So this
lighten
is
the load,
also
yeah.
my steak thing. I can bonk food off. You know, I've hit rabbits with this before.
Get the husband out of the tavern.
Yes. And then my bowl that I eat with. And then this is actually my pan that I cook with.
Now, I bet that's a little bit of weight too, that iron pan, right?
Well, technically they wouldn't have carried a cast iron pan, but I can't afford a steel tin pan right now. So they wouldn't have had a cast iron. But because I have to cook my own meals and stuff when I do encampments, that's what I have.
So the other question for you, so you would take the way you would work out the laundry, you would try to put it over the bowl, try to get much water out. Do you have like a clothesline back then to...
So right there is the way I'm drying it at the moment. The sun is bleaching it from one side.
Yeah.
The grass is bleaching it from the other side because of the oxygen and stuff. So the most part, if you could get grass like this, you would lay it down. If I couldn't get real nice grass like this, I would hang it up either on the tent sides, on, you know, the side things, or in that lilac tree if I wanted my shift, which this is, my undergarment, to smell like lilacs.
Very good. How long is your shift during the day? I mean, how long will you do this? Like, soon as the sunrise, you'd be starting until sundown?
Yeah, so, I mean, we didn't heat up the water or anything. We didn't do jackets because their jackets were wool, and that would have felted them. So we didn't touch their jackets. I do have some bluing in here, which is for terrible stains around, you know, right around the collar. But because I'm following the camp, I would have used this very sparingly, and I would have only used it for the officers.
Makes sense.
So that way, yeah. And the other guys, well, they weren't paying me anyway, so.
The other question, maybe you can answer, how often do you think they change their linen during like their term end? I mean, do they, I imagine they can't do it every other day because all the clothes would be here for you to wash, right?
Yeah, what would happen is, you know, you have such a big army, and there may be 2 women that were doing laundry for maybe the brigade or whatever it was. So you'd have about 150 to 300 men. So it was a constant rollover, because if they had it done like, you know, 2 weeks ago, they're not going to pay me again. So it's just this new guy comes, this new guy. So it was always an influx. Of course, when they were on the march and they were moving, you didn't do any laundry at all, you know. So.
And to move your equipment, for my last question, you probably be walking with the unit with.
Yes.
You weren't provided with a horse or like a cart with a horse.
And they weren't allowed to carry my stuff.
Okay.
Yes, General Washington was very strict on that, where, you know, the Army did not carry any of the camp followers' personal items.
Okay.
So that's why you really had to consolidate. Like I said, when
Right.
I'm carrying this, I'm bent over. I mean, I try to stay straight, and even when I have my stays on, which I don't have on right now because I am doing this and I'm working and bending, I have to bend.
I imagine you're doing a few miles a day too, right? When they're moving.
Oh, when they were moving, they could do anywhere from 5 to 10 miles a day.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
That's a
depending
lot.
on how fast they had to get there, and if you couldn't keep up, they didn't wait for you.
Just stay there until you rest it up and try to follow.
Yeah.
Good luck.
And heaven forbid you be pregnant. Because
Oh,
if they
yeah.
decided to move and you had a child on the way, you were by yourself.
Really?
They did not wait, they did not stay.
Wow.
And everybody was in the same boat. You had to follow them. Otherwise, your existence was
Right. And you have no protection being by
correct.
yourself.
And I mean, you're like 150, 200 miles away. You just walk that whole way. You don't have any family to speak of. You don't know if you're going to be going to a home that's still there, if it hasn't been taken over. So a lot of them just continue to follow the Army, much to General Washington's chagrin. But they had no other way to live. So he
right.
found it that it was necessary to have camp followers, but he called it a necessary evil.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank you for your
Yes,
time
thank you.
today.
Welcome. You're welcome.
Use the
Thank you
word
for doing this.
stave. Is that a corset?
Stays?
Yeah.
So stays are, it's a type
Basically,
of
okay.
corset,
All right.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and hope you enjoy
Okay, so
your
hi,
open
we're
house
at the
today.
open house today for the
Yeah.
Winslow Davis Museum,
Yes, of
and I
course
have
it is.
Howie
Yeah,
here.
of course I will.
He's going to talk about what his job role was back then, and we actually have a customer here too. And your name, sir?
Bob Littlefield.
And where are you from, Bob?
I'm from Shop Slot Road in Swansea,
Okay, very
right
good.
on the Dayton line.
All right.
Yeah, which side of the line you on? You're
I'm on the Swansea
Swansea.
side.
Oh.
I live right across from
I gotta shut this
Old
off.
William Street, which is
Okay.
in Dayton.
Yeah.
That's where I live.
Okay, very good.
So I'm right next to Dayton.
all right, sounds good. So, Howie, can you tell us what your job role was back then?
Well, basically, what we have here is what the average soldier would have carried. He would have carried almost all his goods in what they call a haversack. This is a small one. I have some of my personal materials in it. They have bigger ones, as you can see. Some of the things would have been standard carry. They would have been almost required to carry a knife. They would have been required to carry a hatchet, okay, a tomahawk, whatever. This was a multi-tool because it could be used for cutting firewood. It could be used for pounding in tent stakes, or in battle it could be used obviously for other reasons. Some of the things that they carried, some of the poor soldiers, actually even some of the poor citizens back then, would actually make things out of cow horn. Okay, very similar to the powder horn. They would have been cut, split, they would have boiled it to make it soft, and they would have used it in a form. They could have been wood forms, stone, bowls.
So, Howie, what's that coating on the plates itself? Is that just a
Not a coating, that's just a normal finish from a cow horn.
Oh, wow. Okay.
As you see, these are powder horns. This is what they would have taken and cut, split.
So those are actual horns that came off an animal. What
Yes.
type of animal?
Yeah.
Would that be a cow?
Yep.
A cow
Oh.
or a bull, whatever. Yeah.
And so,
Well, let's talk about this over here. How would this be made? Would they turn that on some type of lathe?
probably
Because they
not.
didn't have
probably
electricity
did-
back then, so they
probably
couldn't-
would have done it by hand.
Oh,
Okay.
but somebody's going to turn the lathe
That's correct.
to get that shape.
That's correct. Do a lot of whittling.
Yeah.
Good
Oh,
sharp
whittling.
Good sharp knife.
Oh, so this is not put on a machine, a lathe of some type that like you would.
No, they
like,
didn't have
like,
Bridgeports back then.
No.
Like if you wanted to sharpen your knife, you would have a stone and you would have to pump it or have somebody crank it. So they would not make that in that device that you saying that's whittling. And then what? They would sand it all smooth like that?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
How many hours
Didn't have
how were you
sand.
talking?
Yeah.
Or something like that? How many hours of work?
Probably good 3 to 4 hours.
Wow.
Don't
Okay.
forget, when you're done with that machine, you'd have to carry it to the next spot.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
chances
yeah,
are
you're
you
talking about
wouldn't-
the machine that would make that, but this
Yeah,
is done
if
by
there was
hand.
one, yeah.
This is also one of the horn utensils. Which
Oh.
you can carry
Oh, can I look
slightly
at that?
by.
Oh, it is like a horn. Can I pick it up and hold it?
Don't drink out of it.
No. It is. It's the shape
Yeah,
of
it's
a
a
horn.
horn.
And they put a wooden plug in the bottom. Yeah, okay.
And this is actually called a gill. This is a form of measurement. They could have used a gill of rum rationing, they would have had a gill of rum, a gill of beer, a gill of whiskey, and they also used it as a gill of rice, part of the rationing. The more illustrious people would have had fancier knives and utensils with on handles. The poorer souls would have had made out of metal. So you want to make sure you had a good blacksmith in the family or a good friend.
And the soldiers would probably be carrying this in their backpack, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. They probably wouldn't be carrying all of this at one time. Okay. They may only have the bare minimum. Because naturally they only have
Right, and the other thing I heard too from my readings, like if they're going to shave, they use the same bowl for shaving as they would eat it, right?
Yeah. And maybe they were lucky if they had something like this with a candle. Okay. They did have mirrors back then. Maybe if you kept it real polished, you might be able to utilize that. And that's basically a candle for at night.
The other question too would be, do you have a wagon yourself? Do you carry this stuff in, or do you?
I do not, no.
Okay.
Most of the soldiers did not.
They use that haversack as their main
Yeah. They would have
transportation
almost
thing.
everything in one bag and carry it on their back. They would have one bedroll. They were issued one blanket. Normally it would have been white. White was the predominant color back then because you did have a lot of dyes. You'd add it to the process and add it to the expense.
Okay.
So I was a little bit luckier. I have a dark blue one.
So you basically would stay behind and prepare all these for the soldiers, right? You have your own shop or whatever. Okay. And they would come to you for their supplies, and you stay behind because that's your shop as they come through.
Yeah, I would do that, and then when things are on the march, I would probably follow them. I would probably participate in the battle with them.
Okay. So you had multiple roles back then.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Howie, we thank you for your time today, and you too,
Thank
sir.
you.
And
You're going to be a star.
enjoy the
Thank you
day.
very much. And what would your job be? You were a soldier.
If the soldier, if I was setting up a shop, I would be what they call a suck.
And you would supply the soldiers with this, or this? Everybody
Well,
would
no,
have,
the
everybody
military
would have their own.
provided them with all of these things. So if I was in the military, I would have been a quartermaster today.
We'll talk about that too. So,
Okay.
so how you,
Love the backdrop too. No, behind you.
we won't talk about that.
Why not?
Address the elephant in the room.
You can see I'm very close to it, right?
So hi all, this is Dave from Channel 9, and I'm with Claire Smith. Claire Smith, I think, what was your job role back then?
I was a camp follower. If my husband went to war, if I had a farm, we had a farm, and I wasn't able to care for it, I would probably follow him. Fortunately, my husband would be an officer, so I was a little more, I had a little more rights than maybe Michelle, our laundress, has. But I would follow him and stay with him during the war. Usually the ladies would either cook or sew.
Okay.
They would mend, so that's about what they would do in camp.
In your transportation, traveling with the Army or whatever, I should say the regiment, were you in a wagon or on a horse?
Now we walk.
You walk too?
We walk too.
Wow, see, that's interesting. Okay. And once again, you can do like 10 miles sometimes, right? Even longer.
Absolutely. It's amazing when you look at what they actually went through. And if you've never been down to Gettysburg, it really is something that you probably might want to put on your bucket list to do. It really will hit home with you as to how they lived. I know you talked with Howie, about what he was showing you. 6 men would sleep in a small wedge tent like this. So they would only have their one blanket. They would be issued certain rations. They would have one soup pot. So the 6 men would put their rations together to make a soup. And then because 6 of them slept in one tent, they would share their blankets. So, with only one blanket, you put it underneath you or you put it over you if you're out walking to the
And
wall.
occasionally they probably fight over that blanket where it really got cold. Like, you know, someone's going to grab it, they grab it back.
Oh, absolutely. You know, the times were tough. The times
Definitely
were
was.
tough.
The other thing I noticed too, I see two dolls in front of you. Was this sort of like the fashion back then?
It was.
Maybe you can talk
Yep,
about this
yep.
a little bit.
Sure. We're promoting. Rehoboth 13th is having a fashion show. Fashions of 1776, and then they have some historic stories as well. So they'll be picking out some men from Attleboro that were in the war and telling their stories of who they were,
Okay.
and then showing people, depending upon your stage of what you did during the war, what they wore, because everyone was different. So in terms of a lady, if I was more affluent, I might have what's called a day dress, which is a little different than what I'm wearing today. This would be your typical camp follower. So what I did is I dressed these young ladies here to show you what they would have. So they would of course have their stockings, and they would have some black shoes with buckles. This is their shift. That's also their nightgown. So at night, that's what they would sleep in. This is called a petticoat. Much like what I have under my apron,
Okay.
a petticoat. This young lady is very fortunate because her pocket, if it was embroidered, she could wear on the outside. If it's not embroidered, it would have to be on the inside.
And one of the pockets of the.
Right,
Okay.
so I have, mine is on the inside, but I can manage it. This is called the modesty scarf, so that they don't show anything from here up. Elbows had to be covered. You could not, a lady could not show her
Really?
Really, never knew that.
Okay. Interesting.
The other thing that they were required, they always had to wear a cap. So they might have had a straw hat to protect them from the sun. The cap that I have on is called a market hat. So you would know that I was going to market because I'd want to keep my face protected from the sun, so I didn't get sunburned, because it was a long way to the market.
Yeah.
Even if you
Hey,
put
could you
a
get
hat.
me a quart of milk while you're going to the market? Yeah.
You had to fight the cow. There was no quart of milk. You know, the rations, when you get into the rations, are amazing. They got a pound of meat, a pound of pork, maybe once a week if there was a pork available. They might get a piece of fish. They would get a loaf of bread, a little bit of butter, and a gill of rice. So they didn't have a lot.
So was this done before they went on to their conflict? I mean, would they like have it all stocked up and they pull it by a wagon with them for their rations?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And then towards the end of the war, they ran out of food, and General Washington had to send somebody back to Washington to say, look, we need food.
Wow.
And again, if you visit Gettysburg, you know, it will tell you what they went through, because they had no food. They had no food. As they would travel, if they came across a farm, they would barter for maybe a cow or something, or they might shoot deer. They would even eat dog if they came across a wild dog.
Really?
Because that's what you had to, whatever you could find, that's what they ate.
So the other question, maybe probably almost the last question. So say if it's really hot, are you allowed to get rid of a layer or no? Back then, that was the standard dress. You have
It's a
to.
standard dress.
Okay. And it could be really hot too when you're all
Really
layered
hot.
up like that.
Actually, today it is warm. In the wintertime, a lady might wear as many as 3 petticoats.
Really, just to stay warm.
Just to stay warm. Or if they were fortunate to have a nice cloak,
Okay. That helps a lot too.
that would help.
Very good.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time today,
Thank you
Claire.
thank you for
And
being
you too,
here.
Howie. Thank you. You guys take care. Have a good day.
Take care.
Bye-bye now.
Good. I'll see what I can do. Clothing over. Misfire on the end there.
Company, to the front. Yeah, we'll go flying the column by wheel.
We're on recording. Oh, they had something down in had a truck or something.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Oh, yeah, Hugger Truck.
Yeah, I was just down there. All right, so recording right now. This is Dave from Tier 9, and I'm talking to Glenn Beatty, who is part of the 13th Continental Regiment. And maybe you could tell us what was the job role back then, as far as the weapons and things like that.
Well, what we got here on display are firearms and various assorted bladed weapons and so forth that would have been found on the Revolutionary War battlefield. From a 1717 Saint Etienne musket to a Charleville, from the French and Indian War era to a Brown Bess from the Revolutionary War on the British side would have been captured. We have a colonial tomahawk, typically carried by the militia. What else do we have? I'll show you this. The Brown Bess is obviously a firearm. With the bayonet on the end, it became a pike, and this rather large piece of brass on the end turns it into a rather effective club. So after firing this weapon, they were still an armed force and didn't want to go toe-to-toe with the British regular.
Wow. Now I noticed the pistols there, were they carried, is that basically for officers or special teams back then? Would they have a rifle and the pistol or no?
No, this pistol is basically a nautical sea service type pistol, and the reason you could say that it's sea service is there's very little adornment to it, very little metal other than what's absolutely necessary because of the exposure to the salt. All right, so there wouldn't have been a lot of inlay to this or anything like that. It'd be purely functional, and it's a single-shot weapon. So after firing it, you'd flip it over and it would become a club.
Oh wow! So you get one shot only with the pistol. That's
Yes.
it. And it's like a rifle back then. You would have to, like a musket, you would have to do the whole thing, clean it out, and re-arm the pistol
Well,
again.
The Brown Bess is a 75 caliber bore, shooting a 65 caliber ball. So the ball doesn't match the bore, and the reason for that is the black powder would foul the barrel. So to ram another cartridge down, all right, you'd have to clean it between, all right, which isn't practical on a battlefield. So they use a much smaller ball, and as a result, when it's fired, that ball is going to ricochet off of the sides of the barrel in various directions, and whichever way it bounces last is the way it's going to go. So these are typically very inaccurate, but the length of the barrel typically straightened out the shot. All right, so by the time it got to the end, it was going to go fairly straight, but we couldn't predict accurately where it was going to go. So, besides being fired in volley, they would not only have in here a musket ball that's 69 caliber, but they'd have 2 buckshot along with it. So when this goes off, you've got 3 projectiles leaving the barrel. All right.
Now the other question is, I know how fast are they reloading that rifle? Are they pretty quick back then? Because they know, like, if they take their time, they can be taken out.
It depends. The British regulars, this is what they did. This was their life. You're talking 3 to 4 rounds a minute.
Really? Okay.
They could drill because that's all they did. All right. Colonials, we're talking 2 to 3. All right. They were slower. The colonials developed tactics where they would fire in sections, so that one section would fire and then the other section would be loaded and ready to fire to protect them while they reloaded, and they would alternate. Whereas the British did things a little different with their lines. But because they were slower to reload, it changed their tactics.
Okay. So they're constantly on guard, always on the go, and it's,
Yes.
Okay, very good. What else I want to talk about? Maybe the swords back then.
Well, this is a French style naval cutlass, all right? And you can see the slope to the blade and the way the basket is very curved and wraps around your hand. The British equivalent was not nearly as pretty. It's very functional, but very ugly.
Oh, wow.
Okay. This is a 1862 U.S. naval cutlass, and if you look at the design of the naval cutlass from the Civil War and the French cutlass, you can see where they got their inspiration from. One leads directly into the other.
Almost like a knockoff, you know?
Well, they made improvements. The basket hilt is much closer, and it's better protection for your hand compared to the French, which
It's
the
not
side
much
is,
there.
yeah.
The other thing too, I noticed with those bags over there, was that for their gunpowder and everything?
That's a
or-
cartridge box. There's another one behind you, and then this is another example of a cartridge box over here.
Okay.
All right. That was an early war cartridge box behind you.
Okay.
This was later in the Revolutionary War, and then this is a reproduction of a cartridge box that was found on the Widow, the Cape Cod Museum. So this is a reproduction of one of their finds. And this, the size of this would have been hanging on your belt, and this would have been for reloading pistols.
Very good.
Pistol shot.
And the other question, I think your outfit today, or uniform I should say, is that for Navy? You mentioned something.
Yeah. This I'm dressed as a sailor of the period.
Okay.
That's a woodcut of a typical seagoing sailor.
Okay.
And the idea behind what looks like a skirt is to protect my breeches. So I get tar and whatever on this, which was easy enough to throw away, but my breeches would stay clean.
Okay, very good.
How about the ammunition for the brown vests? Who made that?
The brown vest ammunition was typically a lead ball. We got lead in wherever we could, and it would be rolled into cartridges.
And who did that? Was there a separate?
No, we would do this in our off hours.
So the troops
We
would
would
have to make their own.
powder measures,
Yeah.
and we would make the cartridges. They would be tied. These modern ones are glued.
So you prep these right before conflict. You have to.
We would be doing this in our downtime.
Right.
Okay.
Fill
That
with
tent
cartridge
over
box.
there, all right, would house 6 people.
Really? Okay.
2 would be sleeping, 2 would be on watch, and 2 would be working.
Must be bad for the sleepers.
But yeah, So,
All right. Well, we appreciate your time today, and I hope you guys having a good time with the open house. I know
Yeah.
we're learning a lot, and thank you again for your time, sir.
you're welcome.
Hey, take care.
Anytime.